Okay. Hi, everybody. Today I am delighted to introduce you to Dr. Marie Thearle. She is a volunteer with the Moms Demand Action of the Phoenix. She's the local group lead, actually. And she's a retired physician whose second career is as an adjunct professor and a small business owner. She's the mother of two children and is passionate about working to reduce the public health crisis that is gun violence. How are you, Marie?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm terrific. Thanks. Is your family doing okay during the pandemic?
So far, so good. My kids are bored, and my husband is still a working physician. So,
Oh, that must be worrisome.
yeah, I pretty much make him shower the second he walks in the door.
Yeah, scrub up, son. Well, tell your husband thank you for what he's doing on the front lines and tell your kids that this too shall pass. Anyway, Marie, let's just talk about a little bit of background information first. And I'd like to say to all of our viewers, if you have any questions, type them into the bar below the live feed, and we will try to get to them as best as we can. Moms Man Action, it's a grassroots organization started out of the Sandy Hook tragedy. Can you tell us about who started it, what the national organization is, and where you all fit in?
Sure. So after Sandy Hook, I think like many of us, it really, hit our hearts and felt deeply personal. And Shannon Watts was a mom in the Midwest and no prior connection to gun violence. She just had had enough. She was over it. So she got on Facebook and she said, "Who wants to work with me on ending this?" And the reason she did that is because she first went to the internet and searched for something like gun violence prevention, like Moms Against Drunk Driving. Didn't exist, so she created it. And from that small Facebook group, it grew and grew. And then she did end up partnering with Mike Bloomberg, who had already started Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And together they made an umbrella organization called Everytown. And from there's now Moms Demand Action groups in every single state. So every state has it's all pretty much volunteer based. I think there's like only 100 or so paid people at Everytown, but for Moms Demand Action, we're all volunteers. So every state has a state chapter lead, and then in Arizona, that's Kara Waite. But then from there's local groups. So in Arizona, there's one in Flagstaff. There is the Phoenix group. There's one in the West Valley, one in the East Valley, and then one in Tucson. So and in those groups, they're run by individuals. So it's kind of like a web, right? So I'm the Phoenix local group lead, and then we have a whole leadership team who work together to try to create events and work to promote gun violence prevention. So just one misconception that occurs a lot is that we're anti-gun. We're not anti-gun. One of our most active leads has a lot of guns. She's a gun owner. We have a number of other volunteers that are gun owners. So we're not anti-gun. We're just anti-irresponsible gun ownership. So if people want to own guns, feel free. It's fine as long as you lock them up.
Yeah, and one of the things I try to talk to people as I'm running for the House seat here in District 23 is that we can't be afraid to have these difficult conversations. What I'm concerned with, it seems that there are many, many sensible gun owners. In fact, you guys endorse candidates as gun sense candidates, those that have sense about guns. And well, Julie here says she's so thankful for the action and the work that you all do. How many actually members do you have approximately in your chapter, and then how many in Arizona? Would you know?
Okay, so when I go to send out like, hey, we're having a meeting, and I go into our system and search out people who signed up and are interested, that's about 700 people,
Wow.
to 800 people for Phoenix.
Just you.
Yeah, so for Arizona, it's much larger than that. It's probably closer to like 3,000 or 4,000. I mean, we're one of the larger groups. And then for active volunteers, obviously people have things going on, so comes in and out, depends. We probably have about 300 people, 300 to 400 people who have attended some kind of event within the last year.
Okay. So we're talking with Dr. Marie Thearle. She's the leader of the Phoenix chapter of Moms Demand Action. Please type in your questions if you have any to ask. I have plenty to ask. I want to ask you right off the bat, we have a history of Arizona and guns. And just this year, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors voted by a 4-to-1 margin to make Maricopa County a Second Amendment sanctuary. What does that mean, Marie? What is that all about?
Well, so there's a movement among a number of counties that, especially after the 2019 election in Virginia, because Virginia never really escapes elections, where there was a turnover of the Virginia government, and there's now a majority of gun sense candidates. And so some gun sense laws started being passed. And I think there's a group of people who became freaked out about that and started working at the county level to try to get these Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions passed. Now, the one in Maricopa County included a statement, I'm going to read it, so sorry about this, that originally it said, be it further resolved that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors would not authorize any government funds, resources, employees, agency contractors, buildings, detention centers, or officers to infringe on people's constitutional rights, including the right to keep and bear arms. So other than that, the amendment was kind of just saying we love the Second Amendment. So that was the phrasing that sort of gave it some teeth. So we had a number of people send emails. Sheriff Penzone called the Board of Supervisors and told him he was very concerned about that statement. So the final resolution that was passed removed that last section, that last paragraph that I just read. So that's not in the resolution. So
good work.
Yeah, thanks. I think it was more Sheriff Penzone, but we tried. But ultimately, nobody was happy, right? So those of us who were there wanting it not to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county weren't happy, but we were glad that it was removed. Because look, we have no problem with the Second Amendment. We just don't want it to be used as an excuse. So we weren't happy. We weren't in love with it, but we weren't like, it just basically said, hey, we're going to support the Constitution of the United States, which, all right, that sounds great. The other side were very unhappy that that was removed. But so the resolution that was passed was kind of like a token resolution. Yeah. And the only thing that was really sort of annoying, I think, to those of us who were there, is that the resolution was voted on without hearing public comment. So the public comment that we made, that you may have seen on the news or whatever, that was all after the fact. So that part I didn't like. That didn't feel like democracy in action to me, but.
Yeah, quick editorial point. You'll find this at the legislature. You'll find this at school board meetings. You'll find this at every elected meeting. It seems when there's an opinion or somebody has 3 minutes to say what they don't appreciate, that people make it as hard as possible for that First Amendment right of speaking freely to get out there. Now, of course, it's something that they have the right to do, but for those same people that hold the Constitution up as something of a kind of like that Lion King holding up that little lion, it's take the whole thing, take the whole Constitution. Let me ask you something. Bryn wants to know, what's the biggest pushback you get when you're trying to talk about Moms Demand Action and the fact that you guys aren't against Second Amendment legal guns?
So the biggest pushback, like before the world went into lockdown, we were often going like to First Fridays down at Roosevelt row. And so that was sort of the best way for us to get out of our bubble. And the thing that we would hear was, oh, we don't want anyone to take away our guns. So that's why I put that out there right away. Nobody wants to take away your guns. It's fine. We just want to keep guns out of the hands of children and anybody with who's a criminal. And we want to make sure that people are safely storing their guns. So like, what's the most heartbreaking thing you read about guns is when like some 4-year-old toddler gets a hold of a gun and shoots their 2-year-old sibling. That's like, we just don't ever want that to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as a reminder, this is Marie Thearle, Dr. Marie Thearle. She's the leader of the Phoenix chapter of Moms Demand Action. Please type your questions in that you have. We're all over this subject. It's such a big subject. And I feel like there's a lot of pent up frustration because we haven't been able to discuss it in a free flowing forum. Domestic violence and guns, that is a lethal cocktail. Can you talk a little bit about what perhaps you have heard out of the legislature to try to keep guns out of the hands of convicted domestic violence offenders?
Yes. And so I also really want to make sure to say that with COVID-19 happening, that COVID-19 just added on to our problems. It didn't really make anything go away. It's all still there. And domestic violence in particular, right now, with everyone stuck at home, is a big issue. So
multiplied.
Yeah. So usually I think there's like 11 cases a week or something in Arizona, and now it's up to 19. This the officer who was shot, I think it was last week. I don't know. Time is like melding together for me, but that was a domestic violence situation. Domestic violence situations are the riskiest calls for our police officers to be called to. So, and in our group, we have a number of domestic violence survivors. So we feel really passionate about this issue, right? So it's most often women who are the targets of domestic violence. And if there's a gun in the house, that makes it 5 times more likely that a woman will be shot and killed. So over the past 2 years,
this is data. This is data. This isn't fake news. This is factual.
Oh, no. Right. Everything we do is data driven. So we look at, hey, where can we make the biggest impact? It's a big problem. Where can we make the biggest impact? And we owe it, like, I wouldn't be involved. So my small business is I'm a statistician and an epidemiologist. I wouldn't be involved if it's not data driven. So we look where can we make the biggest impact? So over the last 2 years with the Arizona legislature, we've had this bill, which basically would say that if you are a person who has been convicted of domestic violence, not just a random report, but convicted in a court of law of domestic violence, that the judge has to ask you, hey, do you have guns at home? And if you do, that they remove them for a period of time. That varies state by state. So we tried last year and we tried this year. Neither time did our bill even get a hearing. So last year we just did a Senate bill. This year we did Senate and House bill. We had 2 Republican senators and 1 Democratic senator sponsor it. And we could not get a hearing because one senator who was the head of the committee of the ruling party was uninterested, did not agree with the bill in any way, shape, or form. So that one person had all that power to say, no way, we can't even discuss the issue and open it to a vote. So we're going to try again next year.
Okay, so
we're hoping the 2020 election changes things. Okay.
So time out here, because I sometimes have to go on a rant. It's a matter of my mental health.
Okay.
And, being in the COVID lockdown, I really start to steam. So let me just reiterate what you just said. Right now, during these extreme times, domestic violence with guns has increased almost 2 to 1, 100%. If a domestic violence situation, if there's a gun in the house, it's 5 times more likely to involve a shooting. with the woman. Over that, you had two Republican senators, a bipartisan bill that was sponsored, that because the majority party has had to put their people into leadership positions of these particular committees, that it didn't even get a hearing in the committee. That is legislative malpractice. That is less than 20% of the voters controlling the whole 100% of the process. It really is just disgusting. And you know what? You make a good point, because I'll tell you what, last time in 2018, I was a gun sense candidate and I was happy about it. I hope to be so in 2020. And I would ask, I haven't been fundraising at all during this epidemic at all, but this is a matter of life and death. And we need to flip the House so we can get legislation on the floor to at least have an adult conversation. I would ask people to go to curlin23.com and get involved. That's it for me. That's what I want to say. Now, I got a question from Dave who's asking a little bit along that way. What legislators can you turn to as proponents against gun violence? And I want you to give a shout out to the Republicans that you talked about.
Okay, so Kate Brophy-McGee and Heather Carter were the two Republican senators who sponsored the bill. Heather Carter in particular, I think, really went out on a limb.
District 15.
And they were our sponsors last year as well. And then the Democratic senator was Sean Bowie. I think I have that correct. Yeah. And look, when we're going to do the gun sense candidate, we've been sending out the questionnaires. I thank you for returning yours. Those designations are going to come out, rolling out over the next few weeks. It was slowed down a little bit by this whole crisis situation that we're in. Okay, that's all I can say about that without getting myself in trouble. Okay.
Yeah, no, don't put yourself in.
Right. So those two senators have had our backs.
Okay, fantastic.
On the Republican side.
You know, I have a question from Julie that I think we're going to get to. This action that has started out of the tragedy of 26 first graders being shot dead has gotten some legs. We're all across the nation. And I know that you have, and I have it in front of me. I printed out a couple of pages, a 58-page report titled Keeping Our Schools Safe, a plan for preventing mass shootings and ending all gun violence in American schools. It is basically an executive summary that I have. It has 8 points. I'm going to read off the points. I want you to just touch on them real quickly, okay? Again, folks, we're talking to Marie Thearle. She's the leader of the Phoenix chapter of Moms Demand Action. Please type your questions into the bar. This is fascinating. 1, pass extreme risk laws. Real quickly, what would an extreme risk law be?
So extreme risk protective order, I think is what you're talking about. So that's what we call an ERPO law or a red flag law. So for example, in Rhode Island, if a physician, a counselor, or a family member is very concerned because someone is actively suicidal or homicidal, they can ask that person's guns be removed. And again, it's not just like willy-nilly, you can use this as a revenge. You have to go to a court of law and have an order, the ERPO, the Extreme Risk Protection Order, endorsed by a judge, and then the person will be asked to turn in their gun. And then the idea is to keep them safe, or if they're actively homicidal, to keep other people safe. And we've heard cases before, right, where, hey, everyone knew this person was dangerous and nobody bothered to do anything. So that's what those laws are. Those are evidence-based as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, and people love to be the armchair quarterback placing blame. Why didn't they do something about it? Well, we have to give them the tools to do something about it. Second one, encourage secure firearm storage. And I think this really speaks a little bit to what passed in Phoenix Union High School District. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So one of the cornerstones of Moms Demand Action is our public health safety campaign called Be Smart, which stands for Secure Your Guns, Model Responsible Behavior, ask, like before you send your kid to a play date, ask if the guns there are secured or if there are guns there at all. Recognize the role of guns in suicide, and then pass it on, tell. So those public health safety campaigns have been backing up. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So first of all, in the United States, and you may have missed it because it came out like just at the beginning of March, firearms are now the leading cause of death in children in the United States. In Arizona, it's still second because we have a lot of car accidents. But if we want to reduce that, safe storage is the way to go. Keep the guns out of the hands of kids. So there's modeling that shows that, like, if we did better safe storage, death rates in children would go down by 32%. This is also important for school safety because in most school shootings, 80% guns came from home. And most of the time, the kids were able to get them that morning. So they impulsively were like, hey, you know what I want to do? Like, I'm angry. They grab the gun and they go to school. They don't even have a chance to double think.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why people want a waiting period between when a cooling off period. It just makes sense. Oh boy. Okay, so this leads right into the next one, raising the age to purchase semi-automatic firearms. You talked about impulse, you talk about kids. What age would be acceptable to start with and why?
Well, now we're getting into personal opinion. So that's a discussion that has to be had. When would you consider somebody to be an adult, right? So we say 18, you can vote, 21, you can drink. But you really need to think about when is frontal lobe development complete, that people will be able to use their brain to make responsible decisions. So
how old do you
have? I like the idea of 21 because of the whole drinking thing,
yeah.
But right, so risky behavior.
Do you know how old you have to be to buy a gun right now in Arizona?
No, I do not, because
we'll have to check.
Right now, an adult can buy it for the kid. Anyway, there's 12-year-olds who are on the shooting range, so
right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
But I don't know what the legal is.
Here's one. I would love to say, why was this voted down in our at the Capitol? Number 4, require background checks on all gun sales.
Okay, so one of the big arguments we hear is background checks are already required. And yes, that is true. If you go to a licensed gun dealer, gun store, they will run a background check on you real quick. Most of the time you're going to pass within a couple seconds. Mm-hmm. Only like 10% of the time that people need a second look, and then there's very few people who get turned down. But those very few people are the people we want to get turned down. The problem here in Arizona is that, okay, that person got turned down. The gun store owner knew that person wants to buy a gun. They're under no obligation to notify anybody that, hey, this person's seeking a gun.
Just flag it.
And shouldn't own one. And they can just say, okay, fine, and run off to one of these gun shows instead. And we even had a member do this because she was upset about it. You can go pay cash, not even have to show ID, let alone get a background check. So that's the loophole we don't like.
Right. Any felon could get a gun. Little bird walk here, a little known fact. Tucson actually had a wonderful law where they were buying back guns and people that had illegally had guns and the police had gotten them away. They were burning those. They were basically melting them down. The legislature passed a law protecting the guns and making it illegal for a local municipality to do that bit of work.
Yeah, right. Preemption.
No. Back to our regularly scheduled program. I'm sorry, Marie. Here's one. And before I ask you about this 5th one, real quickly, does Scottsdale Unified or Fountain Hills Unified have SMART in their schools?
No, but we were so unfortunately the school shut down, right? We met with the Scottsdale Unified School District safety officer and some of the school board members about Be Smart and passing a similar resolution. And we got great feedback and then school shut down. So we'll take it back up. That is we have 3 main priorities. And school safety is one of those, the domestic violence bill, and then the election. So we're going to be right back on it when school opens again.
Right. There's some other things in here too that we could go over, and we might in another time. We have about a few minutes left. I want to take a few more questions that people are putting up in there. I want to again thank you, Marie Thearle, Dr. Marie Thearle, the leader of the Phoenix chapter of Moms Demand Action. Can you tell us how people can get in touch with your organization? And we'll just put the website in the bar.
Sure. So, okay, we have an app.
Ooh.
I know. So if you search for the Demand Action app, it's on the App Store, Demand Action, that will give you sort of all the events we have going on and like news articles, what's happening, what we're working on. So the best way is actually to download that Demand Action app. Otherwise, you can go to, there is a Moms Demand Action website. And if you go to events and type in your zip code, you can find the events that are going on locally.
So they just Google just Google Moms Demand Action and be able to find it?
Yeah, I do Moms Demand Action events. Even though I'm the one who entered the event, I still Google that all the time to find it.
Nice.
So our next event is actually April 29th. Is that a Wednesday? Anyway, yeah. I think the last Wednesday of April, we're having a virtual Zoom meeting for our volunteers, and we're going to have a special guest.
Nice.
And we're also having Charles Katz from ASU Criminology Department, who runs the Arizona Arizona Violent Death Reporting System. So he's going to talk about firearms and violent death.
And I think that's wonderful that you're bringing in a second stringer to lead, warm things up. I think that's wonderful. So let me see. Let me look through a few of these. Dave Long asked, could this, I imagine he's talking about the red flag laws, could it be used against white nationalists and survivalists? I think that's where that question came from.
I don't know what he means by use against them, but
I think we ought to reiterate that you guys are not in the business of taking away people's guns. You are in the business of reducing gun violence.
Right. And we're not interested. If you're a responsible gun owner and you're following the law, that's great. You know what? That's great. Keep your gun. That's fine. We just want if you're somebody who's actively suicidal, we don't want that person to kill themselves. I mean, many of the white men, when they kill, they're 70% in Arizona. 70% of firearm-related deaths in Arizona are white men committing suicide. Well, 70% are suicides. Most of them are white men. So, look, we're interested in everybody being safe, regardless of age, color.
I find it fascinating that anybody can sell a gun to anybody through Craigslist or, I had somebody come out here from Wisconsin and it was like open season for this gun fanatic. And we have a country where there is actually more guns than we have people living here, men, women, children. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go on to a soapbox to say what should be or shouldn't be. I will go on a soapbox and say we have to have the conversations. We owe it to our children who don't have a voice. We owe it to the generations who's grown up in lockdowns and how that's been psychologically damaging. And we owe it to the moms and the dads out there who have lost children and anybody who has lost a loved one from gun violence or suffered a debilitating injury. So with that being said, maybe you'll come back because this was a really robust conversation. I enjoyed it immensely.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm mostly hanging out at home right now.
Okay. I will say that we have a great lineup. Since you're hanging out at home, you might want to tune in tomorrow night. We have Danny Edelman. Danny Edelman is the lead litigant from the Arizona Center of Law and the Public Interest. So they have two cases going on right now, very interesting ones about school finance and about kids in foster care. Sorry. Then Wednesday, we have Secretary of State Katie Hobbs coming on, so people can send their questions in for her. I will try to do a much better job of getting to all the questions. And we have on Thursday, we have House Leader of the Democrats, Charlene Fernandez. And then Friday, we have a fun guest. We have Anjuli from the Babe Council, which is a women's entrepreneurship kind of club, and it's going to be a hoot. Bob Gomez is watching. He's late, but he'll try to make the next meeting. I am not going to come out with an endorsement for Scottsdale's mayor. I'm sorry, Marie, that you had to hear that. Dr. Marie Thearle, everybody, thank you so much, Dr. Marie.
Thank you.
Tune in again tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And if you want to get involved in a campaign to hear more about gun violence, it's Moms Demand Action. Get the app or Google for events, and curlin23.com to get all kinds of updates on the campaign. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a pleasant time with your kids and your husband. I wish him well. Thank him for all of us, okay?
Thank you.